2, 1.
Democratic socialism is on the rise as DSA membership skyrockets. Half of millennials call themselves socialist, and crazy-eyed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez spreads the gospel of envy and the philosophy of failure. Our Stalin-esque comrades face just one problem. There isn't any such thing as democratic socialism. Like dry water or tasty kombucha, democratic socialism is a contradiction in terms. We will analyze why this is, and we'll also identify the key words that you need to look out for to identify brainwashed lefties. We'll talk about why ideology is terrible and when the left lost its sense of humor entirely. Finally, last but not least, I'm hoping that Ambassador Nikki Haley is watching. We will explain why owning the libs is a wonderful thing. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. I wish we could just jump to the end right now and extol the virtues of owning the libs, but we'll save that for later because it's a wonderful thing and I could talk about it forever. Before that, I've got some good news, folks. Good news not only for you, good news for me, good news for the show, good news for the Covfefe in my cup. We've got a new sponsor, Purple Mattress, and I love this. I love any sponsor, any product that can have you thinking about me when you're in your bedroom. And Purple Mattress will do just that. Purple Mattress is some pretty insane technology also. So, obviously these days technology is advancing tremendously. Things that, we used to like ride the horse and buggy just 5 minutes ago, and now there are all these wonderful technological solutions to everyday problems. One of them, and I face this all the time, or I did face this, is that I have back pain when I wake up. So I'd always sleep kind of wrong. My neck, wouldn't feel great, all messed up. Purple fixes this problem. Purple is so good. The founders of Purple are two brothers who've been developing cushioning technology for 30 years for things like medical beds, wheelchairs. They are comfort technology specialists. And they have created a mattress unlike anything else. This was developed by an actual rocket scientist. Purple Mattress. Try a 100-night risk-free trial. If you're not fully satisfied, you can return it for a full refund, backed by 10-year warranty, free shipping and returns, no reason not to try it. Whatever you're doing right now, stop. Go to purple.com. Use my promo code COVFEFE, C-O-V-F-E-F-E at checkout. You will get 10% off your entire order in addition to this week's free gift with the purchase of a mattress. This is not going to last long. Go there right now. Purple.com promo code COVFEFE, C-O-V-F-E-F-E. The only way to get 10% off plus your free gift is to use COVFEFE, C-O-V-F-E-F-E at checkout. Purple.com, promo code COVFEFE. Okay, now we're going to leave the nice things of beautiful mattresses that feel really good and leave you without back pain and having a good night's sleep. And we're going to have to turn back to socialism. All right, let's just dive right in. Let's just dive right in. Democratic socialism with the one sane person, Meghan McCain. Here they are.
Like, isn't democratic socialism very close to liberalism? I mean,
no.
Well, think about it for a second. Medicare, Social Security, collection, the post office, the library.
I agree with you. Well, I agree with you because we had her for this question about what do you mean by being a democratic socialist? And she went to her platform. She says Medicare for all,
good,
fully.
Spending other people's money. Venezuela, one of the richest countries in the world. Now, the average Venezuelan has lost 24 pounds because they're starving to death. 90% of the country is living in...
I think she's talking more about Scandinavia as well.
Oh, okay, got it. She's talking more. By the way, the United States does not have the highest economic in the world. Far from it. There are countries that, the up as socialist, which have more economic freedom than the United States. Get to the central point as the left democratic socialism. Right now, the DSA membership has increased 7.5 times in just years between 2016. Democratic socialism. Ladies, repeat after me. There is no such thing as democratic socialism. Repeat after me. There is no such thing as democratic socialism. Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is there any such thing as democratic socialism?
I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
That's a good point. Fair enough. You're right. You know, now I bet the New York Times is going to yell at me for spreading fake news. He didn't really interview her. He didn't. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't. That was just a clip. It was just a clip, New York Times. There is no such thing as democratic socialism. There are contradictions in terms. You know, there's a really depressing number that's been coming out. According to two separate studies, millennials, the majority of millennials identify as socialist. They call themselves socialists. They rather live in a socialist government. That number has risen dramatically over the years. Even PragerU's Will Witt, who I think was constructed in a laboratory made by Snapchat, Will Witt went out there and talked to these millennials. Look at what they had to say.
Should we have more socialism in America?
Yeah, definitely.
Should we have socialism in America?
I think we already have an element of socialism already, but I believe in the tenets of socialism, and yes, I think we should have more.
I mean, ideally, it sounds like a great idea.
It's one of the options we haven't really tried yet, and what we have been trying clearly isn't working.
What do you think about socialism?
I don't believe to socialism.
Why do you think young people like socialism so much?
Free stuff.
And where have you seen socialism work in the world?
You see, even like in Europe, like France, and at least they have like socialist parties, as well as, you know, in Latin America with like Bolivia and, you know,
Venezuela?
Venezuela.
And where are you from?
I'm from Russia.
Then you really don't like socialism, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They say, yeah, I like socialism. Look, we haven't tried it before, and clearly what we're trying isn't working. I mean, that's why we have the most prosperous country in the history of the world, but we're not as, like, we don't have Venezuela. You know, as saying that they reject the economic order based on profit. What they call for is the government control government control of the means of production. It's just socialism. Irving Kristol, Bill Kristol's father, he talked about this in particular a number of years ago. He wrote, "Democratic socialism turns out to be an inherently unstable compound, a contradiction in terms. Every social democratic party, once in power, soon finds itself choosing, at one point after another, between the socialist society it aspires to and the liberal society that fathered it. Socialist movements end up in a society where liberty is the property of the state and is or is not doled out to its citizens along with other contingent benefits." There are different kinds of socialism. There's international socialism, that's communism, saw it in the Soviet Union. There's national socialism, that's fascism or Nazism. We saw it in the Second World War in Italy and Germany. And then there is democratic socialism. But the end of all of these socialisms is socialism, is government control of the means of production. And as the government grows, the citizen shrinks. A government that can give you anything you want is a government that can take away everything that you have. And you're seeing it play out in real time. It's not just history. It's not just the lessons of history. It's going on in Latin America right now. You see in Venezuela, obviously. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world. And they're just overflowing with energy. They could be a hugely abundant, prosperous nation, and they were for a time until they embraced socialism. We're not talking about ancient history. We're talking just a few decades ago. Now, because a couple decades ago they elected socialists, people are starving in the street, literally starving in the street. It's a failed state. The IMF is warning that inflation could jump to 2,300%. It's utterly broken, utterly failed, and it's really tragic. I mean, you're seeing people burying their babies because they starved at 16 months old, 17 months old. How about in Nicaragua? In Nicaragua, right there's a crisis of socialism. Father Cesar Augusto Gutierrez is warning now about the government just mowing people down, saying that the socialist state is targeting its citizens. The armed socialist state is targeting its unarmed citizens and killing them and torturing them. There was actually a person who's an American citizen by birth who's down there who's been tortured brutally. I won't go into the details. You can read about it in some of the accounts. Being tortured brutally. His name's Marco Novoa by the socialist government. And right now also the socialist government is defiling churches. They're going in, they use this term democratic socialism because they want to make They want to conflate socialism with the Democratic Party. That's actually why they're using it in America. They say, oh, well, I'm a Democrat, you're a Democrat, socialist. They're kind of close, aren't they? They shouldn't be. I mean, perhaps now that is the case. Perhaps the Democrat Party's moved all the way to the left, but they really shouldn't be the same thing. You know, it's easy, whenever the government wants to take power, whenever socialists want to take power, they promise the whole world. They promise you everything. Every tin pot dictator, every banana republic dictator, he has a Bill of Rights a mile long. They say, oh, you'll get food and water. Health care is a human right. Food is a human right. Jobs are a human right. This, and you'll get a car. You'll get sprinkles on your ice cream. You'll get marshmallow sandwiches. You'll get rainbows and puppies. You'll get everything. But when the government has that power, when they take over all the power, you have no way of protecting your rights. You have no way of saying, well, where's my ice cream? They say, well, you'll have to wait a little bit for that, won't you? Well, listen, just wait. You have no recourse. You have no defense, and the government will run roughshod over you. You know, if Madison writes about this in the Federalist, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government at all. But don't forget, those men who are taking over power in these socialist governments attack language. You see, they use it all the time. And before we move on to the question of Cortez, socialist candidates come in. I mean, you're seeing it over just the last years. Sanders and the useful idiots who supported him are surging of the Democrat Socialists of America. They're surging it. They're proliferating all of these candidates, and it's going to get worse. You know, in the 2016 election, the Democrats said, "Good, nominate Trump. Oh, nominate Trump. He'll be the easiest one to beat. He's so crazy and out there and unconventional, right?" They were in for a rude awakening, and I fear that we'll be in for that rude awakening too. It's really worrisome, especially with millennials who don't know anything, because you know, first of all, millennials don't remember the fall of the Berlin Wall. We were born around the time the Berlin Wall fell or shortly thereafter. So you don't remember the horrific stories of communism. You don't remember seeing people being liberated from behind the Iron Curtain. You don't remember any of those things. And you know, at all times, from Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin onward, all the way to Ocasio-Cortez and Finkelstein or Ringelstein, socialists have relied on useful idiots. You now have a whole generation who don't remember these things. And they can't even describe what it is. They don't know what socialism is. They just know that they support it. I think a lot of that is because of the ideology that they've been educated into. So I think conservatives don't just play the short game here. Don't just play, yeah, nominate all those crazy socialists, and then we're going to win in 2018 or 2020. You've got to be careful. You've got to educate people about the horrors of socialism, because in the long run, it could really wipe us out, especially with a generation who doesn't know anything. One way that the democratic socialists do this, the so-called democratic socialists do this, is they manipulate language. This is their main technique. This is the main way that ideologies advance themselves. So, you know, if Ocasio-Cortez came out and she said, you know, I'm a pinko communist, probably she wouldn't do that well. Or even if she said I'm a socialist, might not do that well. But to say I'm a democratic socialist kind of eases it in. She was at an event with Bernie Sanders. She said, we're going to flip this Kansas House seat red in November. People thought that was a gaffe. I think that was a Freudian slip that she was doing. You know, all of this language is the stuff of ideology. There's a great political philosopher that conservatives should all read, and I reference him sometimes because he doesn't get as much play as he should. It's Michael Oakeshott. And he defines ideology as basically being combinations of vocabulary. When you want to know what an ideology is, look at the language that people use when they're ideologues. And there are these whole sets of language, like the left uses it today, and the left used certain language in the 1970s, the left uses different language today. And non-lefties never use this language because we talk like normal people, but they talk like they're true believers, like they're in the cult. An example of this, in the 60s and 70s, the left would use the word oppression. That was the big term. It was the term of all these lefty movements. But today, they don't use oppression anymore. That's sort of antiquated. Now they use privilege. It means the same thing, but that's the term. Well, you've got to check your privilege. How much privilege do you have? He's very privileged. Non-lefties don't use that language, but it's a way for lefties, one, to identify one another, and then two, it shapes how they see the world. Another one is exploitation. You would always hear the exploitation of workers or exploitation of this group or that group in the 70s. Today, it's classism. Another one, you would hear in the 70s, you'd hear alliances. There was talk of that. But now you hear being an ally. I mean, have you seen this on campus, or what do they say? You got to be an ally. What does that mean? What do you mean be an ally? You've got to be an ally. And for those of us who are like normal people, we just kind of look quizzically and then move on. But for those indoctrinated in the ideology, they say, oh yes, I'm an ally. That's how I'm going to view the world as there are the allies and the not allies, the us and the them. Another one is in the 70s they would use consciousness raising. We're raising the consciousness. You know, it's going to raise the consciousness. Now it's calling out. You've got to call out racism. You've got to call out sexism. You've got to call it out. Call it out. What is that? What do you mean call it out? Just start, yeah, you know, so your uncle at Thanksgiving dinner says, oh, I've voted for Donald Trump. He's, you yell, you call it. No, but that's how they view it. That's what the image you get in your mind. Because what they really mean is disagree with somebody or, you know, be mean to them or yell at them or whatever. But the image you have is someone, bam, just shout it, calling them out, shouting it down, stopping the conversation, interjecting yourself into it. In the old days, it was the people, you know, power to the people. Now it's folks. Folks is one of the great leftist demagoguery terms. Whenever it's only Democrat politicians who say, now listen, folks, look, these are good folks. These people, Joe Biden would use it, Barack Obama would use it. I hope it hasn't crept too far into conservative language. They say the folks, the people. You know, there was another group of socialists about 70 years ago that used the folk a lot. They really had an ideology of the folk and a similar background too. In the 70s, you'd hear liberation. They'd say, you got to be liberated. We need to liberate people. Liberate these oppressed folks. Do I get a prize if I use them all in a sentence? Liberate, you've got to liberate. But now it's safe space. They mean the same thing. They sound like they mean the opposite thing. What liberating is being freed and safe space is being coddled and protected. But it's being used to refer to the same thing. They're just twisting the language and so that you can see the adulting because they're children. So they're children and like every time they pick up a bill, every once in a while maybe they pick up the bill for brunch and they say, oh, I'm adulting. Oh, you know, I paid my rent this month. I'm adulting. You think, well, you're an adult. You should exclusively be adulting. The aberration should be when you're childing. Don't child, adult, you know. But they use it. And this is an ideological word because in their minds, they are to be coddled. They are to remain in perpetual childhood. A perpetual childhood where you don't have people say offensive things to you, where you're not expected to work very hard, where you're not expected to fall in line and take orders. You have to, that's adulting. We only do that sometimes. We do that as little as we can. Another lefty millennial phrase is, sorry, not sorry. Sorry, I'm not sorry. And you hear this one a lot. That's another one of like, I can't even. That's another one, especially for the lefty white girls. And they say, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. And it's a sort of throwaway line, but it actually does convey something, which is there's no apology. I don't have to apologize for who I am. I'm great just as I am. You should love me just the way I am. I don't need to change. I don't need to try to become better. I don't need to even adult too frequently. I'm an ally, and therefore, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. I'm not considering another point of view. I'm not considering your point of view. I'm dismissing it. There's a dismissiveness to all of this language. And then my favorite one. This is the way you know that you are talking to a lefty and probably a millennial, is when they refer to their husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend as their partner. Now, I'm not talking about like a gay guy saying, this is my partner. That's been around for a long time. My life partner, or my significant other, or whatever the euphemism is. I'm talking about when a straight guy refers to his girlfriend as his partner, or a straight girl refers to her boyfriend as her partner, or her husband as her partner. I've noticed this with multiple acquaintances of mine, even some friends of mine. So this is my partner, so-and-so. I say, oh, what, you guys start a business together? Did you? Oh, really? Congratulations. What business did you start? Oh, are you a lesbian that identifies as a man and therefore you're her partner? What is it? Because they won't, that language is obviously ideological. The language precludes those patriarchal structures of husbands and wives, this idea that there are social roles that accompany biological sex, that accompany being a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It's a rejection of that. And to use that language is to say, I reject these social roles. I reject the tradition that I've inherited. I reject those things. I am a modern person who's totally free and liberated, and I reject biological categories of sex. That's what happens when you use that. And the same is true of conservatives. When conservatives say, this is my wife, rather than saying, this is my partner, you know, sweet little Elise is my partner. I'm not a man, I'm not a partner. You're my wife. I'm using it as an example. If you were to say those things, then you're saying, I believe that there is a categorical difference between men and women. You are stating that. And these days, in certain ideological quarters on the left, that is not acceptable. That is not kosher at all. This brings us back to President Trump, as most things do. Because President Trump uses language appropriately. Did you read this story, this news article about a couple, their names are Nate and Julie, terrible parenting. They're raising them to be gender neutral. They're calling them they-bees. Not him or her, but they-bees. Because I guess they don't realize that Baylor and Caden, to call them they-bees, to call them gender neutral and brutalized and basically had no brain function by the time he got back. The decision to do that, if you haven't read the piece, it's in GQ, it's worth checking out. The decision behind that, as it's reported in that piece from Donald Trump, is not ideological. He didn't run down all of the checklists and say, oh, but then we've got to do this for this North Korean diplomat, and that'll imply this, and then this doesn't fit into this strategy. And no, he didn't. He saw the situation for what it was. The people in the room said that he was behaving like a father more than like a politician. And he said, get the kid home. Got to get him home. Is he home? Is he safe? Is he this? Is he that? There's the kind of gut instinct. We in this modern world, and especially in this lefty world, we like to pretend that everything can be rational. If we can't rationalize something, we don't want to do it. If we can't think of the theory of something, we don't want to do it. That's what the left does. That's not what the conservatives do. We can rely on other things. We can rely on faith. We can rely on instinct. We can rely on, you know, our gut feeling and institutions that have guided us. That is the great advantage that conservatives have over the left. The left, which has to turn everything into an ideology. Who cares if it works in practice? Does it work in theory? And that isn't Trump. People get upset about that. They say Trump isn't ideological enough. I'll take it. I am happy to take that all the time. You know, the Trump-Iran tweet, the fire and fury, and it's going to go down, we're going to, you know, knock your socks off. That's a great example of this. You know, Javad Zarif, which is, I think that was John Kerry's ex-boyfriend from when he was Secretary of State. Javad Zarif, the foreign minister of Iran, he responded to Trump and he said, we're not impressed. This doesn't mean anything. Nonsense. I think Iran was impressed because I think their currency, which was already at record lows, plunged yesterday after President Trump sent that tweet. He's working against the expertise of all the technocrats who've read all of the books and they know so well, and they've, you know, look, come on, I've read all the books and Trump hasn't read any of the books. Knowledge isn't about books. Books can contain technical knowledge. Technical knowledge is great, but there is a practical knowledge too, and that is what this administration is exhibiting, and it's working. And this is no surprise, because books are just a paltry little technical approximation of reality, of real knowledge. I have got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube, and I was just about to get to the logical comedic conclusions of leftist ideology, which is the no more comedy. There's now a comedy special on Netflix about not laughing, about no comedy. It's a true story. We'll play a clip from that, and also a couple more things to get to, and I have to also defend owning the libs. Before that, you got to go to dailywire.com. It is $10 a month, $100 for an annual membership. You get me, you get the Andrew Klavan Show, you get the Ben Shapiro Show. You get to ask questions in the mailbag. Get your mailbag questions in. We'll answer them on Thursday. None of that matters. Oh, that's good. That tastes like the Iranian rial plunging to record lows yesterday, because fire and fury are going to rain down from either heaven or from whatever airplanes the United States sends over to bomb them. Yeah, this is really good. This is good stuff. And it's not only is it Javad Zarif tears, but it's also the expert tears. The expert, technocrat, ideologue. Ooh, we know better than Trump. Ooh, nope, no you don't. Very good. Go to dailywire.com. We'll be right back. A lot more to get to.